So, I know I haven't made a video in a while, but I'm back. Different day, different video, different fit, different spot. I'm in a tree, and today, one of the things I wanted to talk about was God's plan for your life. And it's a Sunday today. So as most Christians do, I went to church, went to the 9 o'clock service, and then I went to Bible study. And that's really what we talked about today in Bible study, is God's plan. And we talked about how in the Bible, in Genesis, Joseph went from being a slave in a dungeon, being sold into slavery, and being imprisoned, to being the second highest power in the nation. And that is just a crucial example of how God will work in your life. Because he went from the lowest of low to almost the highest of highs. And that's a big thing. Because as Christians, we need to trust in God's plan for us. And sometimes we get a little impatient. Now that's one thing that's not a big problem for me, is being impatient with God. Because I live by the Bible verse, Isaiah 60:22. When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. And I live by that, like I said. But it's hard for other people to accept that, because there's just a constant belief of now. I want it now. I gotta get it done now. But one thing that people don't realize is that God has better plans for you than you could ever imagine. There's this guy I follow. His name's Sam. And he's a business and fitness coach. And I don't know him personally, but he is extremely successful, probably making around, I'd probably say $200,000 a year, over $2,000 a week. So that's probably more than $200,000. But 2 years ago he was homeless. 2 years ago he was homeless. The amount of time, how quick God can work in your life is insane if you have faith in him. And as Christians, we need to walk by faith and not sight. Because if we walk by sight, you have all these worldly desires. All these worldly desires where it's like, oh, I'm gonna chase girls, or I'm gonna chase money, or I'm gonna chase fame. I'm gonna chase a good physique. But as Christians, we need to put God first. We need to put chasing our relationship with God first. Because God is the only one who will give you what you truly want. Not girls, money, fame. Those won't fulfill your heart. But what will is the love of Jesus Christ and what he did on that cross. And that's just something that he went through unbearable pain for a sinner like me, for a sinner like you, for a sinner like everyone in the world. That's a love that you can't even fathom. And what I've been reading lately is the book of Job. And what he says in the book of Job is, if you haven't read that book in the Bible yet, it's about a man who has everything taken away from him, but God repays it sevenfold because he was faithful. What happens in there is there's a man named Job, and he's so faithful in God. And he's so faithful in God. And Satan goes to God and says, hey, if this person is so faithful in you, let me test him. Or not test him, but let me put him through pain and see how faithful he is after that, after he thinks you took it all away from him, but it was me. So God allows Satan to take things away from Job, like his sons, his sheep, his crops. But after all those things were taken away from him, he praised the Lord. He stayed faithful. And in return for him staying faithful, God blessed him sevenfold, tenfold, whatever you want to say. He gave him back everything he lost and more. And that's something that we need to do, because God took Joseph from being a slave to being the second highest in the nation. That's something that you can't achieve in a few years, but it is something that you can achieve if you stay faithful to God. And you might be chasing a girl right now. You might be chasing money. You might be chasing fame. But none of those things will fulfill you. The only thing that will fulfill you is the love of God and the faithfulness you put in him. And if you stay faithful, you will succeed. Give glory to his name everywhere you go. Because when Judgment Day comes and you don't accept God, you will be thrown into the lake of fire. And Satan will torture you for eternity. And you'll be sitting in the lake of fire thinking, oh, I should have followed God when I had the chance. I should have done it in this life when I had the chance. But it's too late. When Jesus comes, there's no second chances. There won't be a second chance for you when Jesus comes. So follow God now. Follow God now and see what he does for you. Because I promise you, his plan is better than what anyone else thinks your plan is, what your plan is, what my plan is. If you trust in God's plan, it'll bring you to such great heights that you can't even fathom at this current point in time. because all it takes is faith. Walk by faith, not by sight. When Jesus is rescuing the people in the boat, when Jesus is rescuing Peter and Peter's foot sinks into the water and Jesus pulls him out, he says, "You have little faith, why do you worry?" Something along the lines of that. I haven't really read to that part yet. But you have to have faith, because if you walk in faith, you'll sit above the water. You will not drown. And people want to feel sorry for themselves because of where they are. But you can't feel sorry for yourself if you're not trying. And I don't care, this part, I really don't care if you're a Christian or not. If you're in a dark place and you're not doing anything about it, then you're wrong. If you're low in faith and you're not doing anything about it, you're wrong. A couple weeks ago, I was really slacking. I was barely reading my Bible. I was still reading a verse a day, but that was it. Barely reading my Bible, barely getting into God's Word, falling into temptation every day. But I was like, you know what? I'm not going to keep this up. I'm going to do something about it. And I prayed and I read God's Word. I feel more spiritual than I ever have. I feel so close to God at times. Like earlier today, I felt so close to God that I could touch Him. And that's the kind of faith you need. You need to have such a good relationship with God that you could reach your hand out and feel Him. But another thing is that when you're lacking in faith, that might be when God is testing you the most. Because when you're lacking faith is when you need the most faith of all. I don't really have much more to say, but just think on that. I'll see you guys in another video.